I'm George, by the way.
Hey, I'm Zane.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Laser Boy podcast, conjunction with A24 guys. This is the Beef podcast. We're on episode 5. I'm your host, the Laser Boy, Joseph Ngo, and here with my co-host, Edwin Lee. How's it going, Edwin?
Doing well. How are you?
Very good, very good. We're here to talk about episode 5, Such Inward Secret Creatures. And if you want to hear more episodes of our podcast, please check out the website at thelaserboy.wordpress.com, laserboy with a Z, and type in the Laserboy on YouTube. I think that's the only place we're posting these beef episodes right now, so please check us out there. No news as of today. It is Friday, June 30th. We're doing these episodes, kind of whenever we have time, so sorry if we don't have a really consistent, release schedule here. I try to put them out each week after, we record. I'll edit one episode and put it out, kind of whenever. So again, sorry about the inconsistency on that. So no news. We're just going to talk straight about episode 5. We'll do a recap. And then at the end, we will give our Yelp rating, is what we've been doing. So, overall thoughts on episode 5, Such Inward Secret Creatures, Edwin?
Overall thoughts. Thought it was interesting to see Danny, how can I say it? Propel things in the beef by engaging more with Amy's family, namely George, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. And then what else goes on? Some major developments with Paul's character and Paul's relationship with Amy. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting developments. So
Very cool. Yeah. For me, this is the downward kind of lull. I think it's like the Cold War between the beef right now. So again, like engaging in the beef indirectly with each other's family. I guess like Amy started it first by engaging with Paul, right? And Danny doesn't know that, but he, through, whatever coincidence or just their like-mindedness, he engages with Amy's family, so they're kind of engaging with each other indirectly in this kind of Cold War atmosphere. And it's slower pacing right now, but I have some issues with that. But I think it's necessary. You need lulls and highs in a series that's, 10 episodes. So I think it does a good job with it, and we'll get into some more details as we talk about the episode. But let's start off. The episode starts. So this is the aftermath. The episode previous, they blew up in Vegas. Amy had the Forster conference. She was speaking and she went to kind of sway some board members' minds, I guess. Because she just got the news dropped by Jordan that they need her to stay on the company as the face of the brand, which she does not want. She wants to, spend time with the family, wants to just sell the company off and cut ties, kind of thing. But that's not happening. And then we got the big blow up with Isaac, Danny, and Paul, who Paul absconded with their Danny's truck that had evidence of their kind of construction paraphernalia, for lack of a better, all the gear that they're using to reconstruct, to do the renovations for the church for
right. And there was like a mini fridge that was registered, and that's really
that's mentioned in this episode. So yeah, all this blowout from a huge episode 4. So we're gonna be dealing with all that. So the episode starts with George biking, and then to your right, on your right, kind of thing, Danny comes up to him and reminds me of like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, to your left kind of thing. I was probably not referencing that, but yeah, he's engaging with George. Calls himself Zane. I don't know where he came up with that, but
Yeah, it's a very non-typical Asian
Right.
name.
yeah, George and Danny are non-typical, but I mean Western.
Right,
Westernized.
and I think maybe Danny picks up on that, and so he's trying to connect to George where he's at.
Mhm.
And as Danny's pretending to be a biker, I thought it was interesting that he really knows his stuff about bikes. So either he's a biker himself, or has been, or he really did his research. I don't really know.
Danny knows a lot about.
Yeah,
biking?
he's
Okay.
asking him about his bike, and talking about aluminum bikes versus carbon fiber and this
Right.
and that. And so, yeah, Danny is playing the role very convincingly.
Yeah. So yeah, he's in the hen house there. Back to Isaac. He's Isaac's apartment. He's on house arrest. He's complaining to it with his I guess his partners in crime, friends, close friends, Michael and Bobby. Michael is I forget the actor's name, but he's from Dave. And
What?
Bobby, I don't recognize him, but I'm sorry.
I was gonna say one of your personal favorites.
Oh yeah, one of my personal favorite shows that just ended on a really high. Not did end the series, but season 3 was really good, really great guest cameos there in the finale, and yeah, God, what is Andrew Santino? And I did not know. You told me this that Lee Sung Jin wrote season 2, episode 1 of Dave, the K-pop episode. So probably has some connections with them,
yeah.
and probably got smuggled Andrew Santino over to his series there. So very cool little tidbit. Oh, I forgot to mention the title, Such Inward Secret Creatures, is a quote by Iris Murdoch. And the full quote, I guess full quote in this context is, we are, quote, we are such inward secret creatures that inwardness is the most amazing thing about us, even more amazing than our reason, end quote. I don't know who Iris Murdoch is. Do you know who that is?
I don't know that she's an author. I've not read any of her
Okay.
works. But
Lit-
whoever is coming up with these episode titles is a very literate, cultured person.
Right. I mean, I had to look these up, so it goes to show you how culturally rich I am.
How am I supposed to fucking relax? They got me crossing state lines, grand larceny, assault. I'm fucked!
So I guess the assault on the security
Yeah.
at the casino. He pretty much says, I'm fucked, dude. And then he comes in and he's like, don't be all welcoming shit. And I want him to feel bad. So you can tell he still loves him, but he just wants to kind of teach him a lesson. Like,
Yeah, Isaac's very big on people showing respect to him,
Yeah.
and when he feels disrespected, slighted, he really bears a grudge.
yeah,
And we see that throughout the series. And so Danny comes with the peace offering, a Sara Lee pound cake. Yeah.
And it's so funny. He's so like nice. He's like, oh, hey, what's up? Long time, Bobby. Sick beanie. And he's like, Bobby just wants to acknowledge, like,
Yeah.
oh, thank you, bro. But he's just like, he needs to be.
Yeah, he needs
you
to
can tell
follow
he's like,
orders.
he's
yeah.
like holding in his welcoming attitude. He's just says, fuck you.
Yeah.
um,
And it's funny that Isaac has a very preferred way of eating the Sara Lee pancake. Where
Right.
he's like,
Cut that shit up.
chop it up and
Yeah.
put it in the microwave for 15 seconds
yeah.
and this and that.
Thick slices, too.
Yeah.
So yeah, peace offering, but Isaac's not having it, and they're just talking. I guess a whole bunch of kind of exposition dump here, telling him how they got caught, and I tried to tell the cops it wasn't all you. They wouldn't believe me, and the truck in the business is under his name, Isaac's name. So, and then like you said earlier, it's because of the fridge. The fridge is registered. How dare they steal a Daewoo? They're trying to support Korean own businesses, and it shot him in the ass, right? Or bit them in the ass. Is that the term? I forgot.
Yeah.
Uh, they call Amy the plant bitch, and he's really pissed. He wants him to pay back the 20K, and he's just blaming it all on Amy. It's like if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have done this and that, and he's not being accountable, right? He's just laying the blame on somebody else, and then he starts to thinking she's not self-made, and he comes up with his master plan here, which is to rob the Nakai residence, thinking that George comes from rich art money, right?
And when we find out as viewers that it's the other way around, that Amy's really providing the financial stability for the family.
Yeah, we'll get to that later, but yeah. On the outside, it really seems that his father, George's father, who passed away, comes from like the big Japanese artist money, right? He's like, they got all this crazy shit we could steal, like that herpes poop or whatever that Bobby or Isaac said, which looks terrible. I don't know. I could see how anybody could see that and think that's worth a lot, but whatever. Isaac slaps him, and you can tell it really affects Danny. Like, they're talking about that in the last episode, how they got hit a lot by the elders. The eldest ones always get the brunt of the punishment, right? And then follows through on that theme here with Isaac. Really just trying to flex, trying to show who's boss. Like, I want my return on investment. You're fucking up right now. Like, pretty much putting him in place, right?
Right, and Stephen Yeun does a good job of acting where you could see that, like you said, it does affect him and how he's going to remember moments like these. And when things happen, he can look back, or we can look back to events like when Isaac hits Danny. And it all comes together.
That's a very good point. I saw that too, and it just his look of like repressed malevolence. Like, I want to hit him back, but I'm just gonna take it right now, and he'll pay for it later, kind of thing. Like, you could tell he's not gonna just forget it, and he doesn't just like take it like a beaten dog either. Oh, he does, but like in a way that's like vengeful almost. You can see it in his eyes, right? Bobby's carrying a gun for some reason while they're doing the church renovations, and so I guess that's the construction crew, right? And those guys are funny. I like Michael and Bobby. He had a good, cool rapport here.
So,
go ahead.
In this scene at the church, Michael is
the white guy
making reference to this Harvard crow study, and we see crows throughout the series, and it's another bit of foreshadowing that the series does a lot. And I took it to be connected to the theme of how whatever we do have consequences, and like how we treat people has consequences. And so how Isaac just treated Danny in the previous scene is going to have consequences. What Amy does to Danny is going to have consequences, and vice versa. And it's just constantly going back to the theme. And
in the scene prior as well, Isaac mentions, you're going to do all the renovations, apparently with Michael and Bobby, and he's going to be, Isaac's just going to cash the checks, right? He means the loans, right? Cash the bank's loans checks. Is that what he means? Okay. Because instead of using those loans for the renovations, they're pocketing that and then doing the renovations themselves, right? That's the scam. They don't really get into detail on that, but
Well, Danny's angle is he's going to use that money to pay for the land for his parents, and obviously Isaac's going to get his cut. But yeah, the scam is they're getting free construction materials, so they don't need to use the loan money to get that stuff. And
right. And Danny's original intention was to just use the loan checks, maybe pay off, wet Isaac's beak a little, but use the majority of that amount towards buying the land to build a house for his parents to come back over, right? But then now that's all in turmoil because Isaac is upset about the house arrest thing, and he's like, "You're gonna pay me back my investment now," so it messes up Danny's whole timeline of using the money for his own personal benefit, which is not really his own personal benefit; it's for his parents. So, and then in this scene here where Danny's on the ladder doing roof work, he kind of incepts. He puts this idea into their head that Isaac's not really, he doesn't have a vision. I have the vision, and he's kind of usurping Isaac's dominance or his his leadership, so to speak. So
yeah, dude's got no vision.
Yeah, man, I got vision though. Just no one can see my vision but me.
You can already tell he's already, things are in motion for him to, again, for lack of a better term, usurp Isaac as alpha male. They're talking about alphas in this episode, in this scene too. So he says Catherine Zeta-Jones. I don't know where that came from, but he's more. No, he's more of a. He's not even a beta. He's a Zeta. He's a Catherine Zeta-Jones. Real quick side note here. Bobby's always wearing this beanie. Is it cold right now, or I'm guessing it's Junie's in school, so it's probably either fall or spring. So it's not
maybe
summer.
that's just a style, or
okay, because Michael's in a t-shirt, and I guess he's just always cold.
I don't remember if is he maybe bald or
probably yeah. I always wear hats too to cover my baldness, so I relate. Anyway, so Zane comes over to George's in the next scene, and George just lets him in. He doesn't even vet him, right? He's just so inviting. And Junie comes in. I know you.
And I think that shows George's upbringing, and he's very privileged, so he hasn't had to be very street smart, and so you could say he's naive. He's just overly trusting. But I like the scene because it does do a lot for character development for both George and Danny. It's interesting that Danny's trying to get the scheme going where he'll get Bobby and Michael in there, and so he's trying to say, oh, you need to do this work, there's a leak and this and that, but you see that George has to run everything by Amy. Well, let me ask her, let me run it by her. And so you can see how George is not a very assertive person. He doesn't have his own personhood. He's very dependent on Amy.
Yeah.
And so that builds up George's character. We get more into his psyche, but we also get into Danny's character in the role of Zane. So Zane's playing up to George's insecurities by complimenting his art, and by doing that he's fulfilling George's emotional needs. And so Zane / Danny, he's very savvy. He understands psychology and what will speak to people's mindset. And George actually says, "I'm so glad I met you. You know, I feel like you actually care." So you could see how his life has been devoid of that affirmation.
Yeah, maybe he's projecting his loneliness
of that connection
onto him, right? But also, I think he's very intuitive, and even Danny, even though Danny's acting, he could probably like tell, like he intuit that Danny is kind of a caring person and a good person underneath, all of whatever act he's pulling. But before this, I wanted to mention real quick about the Junie. She says, "I know you."
Mm-hmm.
She did actually see Danny.
Right, when he was putting the gasoline on.
Yeah, even though he had a hood on. So you think that was kind of subconscious there? Because she probably, I mean, she's a kid too. She probably doesn't really recognize him.
Well, I think it was implying that Junie does remember him.
Okay. Or I always thought it was like a game she played with everyone too.
But to Danny's benefit, George was just thinking that, she was just being strange.
Yeah.
And so, that bailed out Danny.
Right. Bobby and Michael are shopping at Forster's for, a list of shit that Danny wants them to buy. They're saying they're plumbers, right? So he has to mention, as part of the heist, as he mentions like the leak. And Danny sees the Tamago. It's a very recurring motif. Yeah. I feel like, they have a very interesting relationship, Danny and Zane and George here. And talking about what his perception of art is. And he says something to the lines of, off the top of his head, he just doesn't like it? Or do you remember what he says?
Oh, yeah. He was saying that he felt sad.
Oh, okay.
And this and that. And then he was contrasting it with George's sculptures.
Okay.
And how he liked George's sculptures.
Yeah.
Better.
Oh, so he's describing
The Tamago chair.
No, he's describing those poops. He's
Oh
looking at
yeah,
the poops.
that's right.
Okay.
That's right. Sorry, yeah.
So those are George's, right?
Those are George's.
Okay.
Those are George's.
Yeah. So I guess he's giving him some criticism, constructive criticism, and George is like, it's everyone's opinion. Your opinions are valid, and kind of that deal. And when you said this earlier, when George like compliments Danny and tells him he's a good person, and you could tell Danny's like he is a good person because he feels guilty now for robbing this guy who's like confided in him and kind of become his friend in a short amount of time. But then he proceeds to make a phone call in the bathroom and tell him, calling off the heist. And Bobby and Michael are very adamant. They're determined to steal something. They're like, lifetime criminals or something, because they just have that itch that they have to scratch.
Yeah.
Right? And they're like, we're going to do it anyway. Don't make us look up the address, right? Kind of thing. And he's just like, he can't tell them no. They're just going to do it. George ends up fixing the leak himself, right?
Yeah, he shuts off the water.
Okay, yeah. And then
he's very proud of himself.
Yeah. He gets a ring from Michael and Bobby, but he proceeds to dismiss them. And during this conversation, well, I think it's later, when he's like really proud of himself for fixing the leak, it's revealed that he's having an affair with Mia. Or sorry, Kayla, right? It's Kayla. No.
Mia.
Kayla is the catfish name. Jesus Christ. So many people with two names, these duplicitous fucks.
Well, yeah, that's when we find out that he is talking to Mia and having an affair. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he says, "I love you too," and I thought he was talking to his mom because he's talked to his mom similarly on phone calls before. Because when in a previous episode he says, "Oh, bye, I love you," I thought, oh, maybe it's somebody else, but then he says, "Okay, bye, mom," or whatever, and like, okay, that's just how he talks with his mom. So in this instance, he says, "Bye, I love you," and all that. So I thought he was going to say, "Okay, bye, mom, see you later," but then he names Mia.
Yeah.
And so, and then you're like, oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, he says, "Bye, Mia." Yeah, the next scene with Mia and Fumi, Mia's kind of sucking up to her, to the mother of her potential lover, right?
If you ever needed an assistant or know of any galleries hiring, I'd be...
Is there a restroom nearby?
Oh, yeah, just right around the corner.
I guess asking for references, maybe.
Yeah, I think
trying
that's
to get another job.
Mia's whole thing is she's very opportunistic, and she's working at Koya House to
Under
hopefully
Amy, yeah.
get as a stepping stone to something better, and she's probably using her connection with George to maybe enter deeper into the art world, and with Fumi. And it's funny how she says things that you could take as very, I don't know, either culturally appropriate or just, I don't know, maybe culturally patronizing.
Yeah,
where she
yeah.
talks about
Insensitive
the
too, yeah.
yin yang and all that.
Right. Yeah, but then she, counterpoints that by saying, "I admire the artistry in your family so much. By the way, if you ever need an assistant..."
Right, I feel like whatever positive thing she says, it's always for the purpose of advancing her
There's an...
her career.
Right. There's a, what do you call it? Ulterior motive.
Yes, ulterior.
And she, Fumi runs into Amy snapping a lewd selfie of herself. And we get more insight into, their kind of contentious relationship. Fumi, I don't think, has ever trusted Amy.
Yeah. And
sees, she works hard and she values her for that, I guess, but I don't think she ever liked her as, a proper fit for her son, which is understandable, parents just looking out.
Sure.
But, excuse me. Next scene, we got, Fumi eating lunch by herself. Amy called the lunch off, talking to George on the phone. And what struck me about, seeing Fumi a lot in this episode, I was, thinking about that a lot. And I usually think, when I watch I watch a lot of TV shows, dramas especially. Whenever you spend a lot of time with a character you don't see a lot, it usually means one of a couple of things. The main one is they're going to kill that character off.
Yeah.
Why are we spending so much time with this person we've never spent so much time with before? It's because they're trying to empathize, make us empathize with this character before they,
sure,
kill them off. So I didn't think too much of that the first time I saw it. Seeing it now, like, oh God, what's happening here? Getting dreaded thoughts here. Did you think similarly, or?
Yeah, if you were to put a needle drop, maybe you could put everybody hurts, or all by myself, or whatever.
Yeah.
Because when she gets off the phone with George is busy. I think Fumi realizes her own loneliness, because George really is her only friend, and now that George is busy, she's lonely. And I think the creators of this show, they really want to hit home this theme of everybody has their own emotional needs and issues, and everyone needs to fulfill those things, whether it's George or Amy or Paul or Danny. Well, Fumi's just another person who has emotional needs.
Yep.
We see later in the scene that she's calling up people to fill that void, but
calling into chat.
they're busy too. Before that, though, when she was talking with George, Fumi wonders why George didn't just call plumbers. She was saying, "Oh, you sculpt with your hands," you know. So it just further represented how George and his parents they live in a very privileged bubble.
Yeah.
Where it's just the arty bubble where
Sure.
they probably never had to fix anything, and so they have this, at least Fumi has this condescending attitude towards working with your hands.
Yeah.
That's not related to their art. So
Sure.
working class blue collar laborers, they would look down on them like, oh, you know, they get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Well, yeah, that privileged bubble is about to pop because I think she's talking to like an accountant or, you know, somebody who handles her financial estate, and they say that Haru is her late husband. Haru's estate is insolvent.
You know Haru's estate isn't exactly solvent, and I just got your credit card statement. I mean, we've spoken about this. You need to create a new budget or find new streams of revenue.
I know.
And you just got the Tamago chair back from the gallery. Maybe you finally sell.
Again, that theme of the Tamago chair directly relates to, you know, the Nakai's financial problems now. You know, we thought, like we said earlier, you know, from the outside, Danny thinks that they come from rich Japanese art money, but it seems like they're going bankrupt kind of here. So that's kind of fascinating.
That's another thing we see in the series is deceptive appearances. Like Amy's life looks so perfect, and in that press conference thing in Vegas, she said, "Oh, you really can have it all," and on the outside looks like she's got this perfect life when, you know, obviously she doesn't. And Fumi looks like, you know, she's got everything she needs, where she's lived a very comfortable life, but that's all crumbling down around her. So I thought that was this is another reoccurring theme.
Right. You need to project success. You know, it's a positive affirmation, and it's all. I think she says this in a later episode, but she has a very interesting quote about how we project things in our life. It's very like very new agey, but I think she says it in the next episode. So
Yeah.
I'll
Sure.
withhold that quote. So next scene, Paul's been, you know, crashing with his friends, you know, after the fallout with Isaac and Danny, and they're asking him to pay rent. He's like laughing. He's like, yeah, it's kind of expensive. Our place isn't cheap, you know. So Paul's learning that, you know, money is pretty important in life. He can't just bum around and you know, sell crypto and make nothing. Well, I think Danny has a hold of his accounts anyway, and he lost most of his investments anyway. So that's what led him to attempt suicide in like one of the earlier episodes. They didn't really follow up with that, but it's probably a safe bet that he lost it all.
And in this scene, you could see how Paul can't really relate to the immaturity of his friends. Like, you could see it on his face. So you could see Paul, he's a thoughtful guy, but in the end, his friends introduced the idea of just getting the money from his sugar mama.
Yeah.
And so
She's rich and she's a mom.
and so he might not have thought about that before, but they put it into his head, and so we'll see in the next scene that's what he does.
Yeah, he's texting with Amy in the bathroom. She texts him a shot of her butt, and, you know, again, it reiterates this theme that she needs somebody emotionally to connect with, and Paul's that person, right?
Yeah.
I mean, George is kind of emotionally unavailable at this moment. Maybe he's dealing with his own stuff. Also, he's dealing with an affair with Mia, so that explains a lot as well.
Right, and
He's not there.
And it's very codependent. Paul needs somebody just as much.
Yeah. I mean, he's living on his own now, so he has nobody to talk to.
And he can't connect with Danny.
Yeah, definitely not with his friends that he's crashing with. And she invites him over, and of course, when she's like, nothing physical can happen. Cut to boom. One of the apparently on Reddit and Twitter, people think this scene is very fiery, so it's very passionate, love-making scene here. I think it's just been building up, and they connect emotionally, so that's the next step for them to just connect physically, right?
Right, and it's the opposite of the vanilla that
Right.
she's been feeling with.
Yeah, well, kids these days think that that's like standard, like choking and stuff. Like I don't know. I don't want to get into this too much, but like you watch go on Pornhub, and that's like the standard. That's like what kids think is normal, So for him, it's normal for him, right? The post-sex conversation is interesting. He's talking about making moves, and all kind of a preamble to him asking her for a loan, right? Which she outright kind of denies, because I think no. Go ahead. You're saying something.
Yeah, this is an important scene between Amy and Paul, because Paul makes some comments about how he's got things going on and he's going to be where Amy is, and I don't think Paul means anything by it. He's just talking, but Amy has to check him by saying, hey, it's not that easy.
Yep.
It takes a lot of work and sacrifice, and
it's not millionaire in no time.
Paul takes it as her being dismissive and patronizing.
Yeah.
So all of the good time that happened right before this conversation, well, that just goes out the door, because they're upset at each other, they're resentful of each other, and like you said, he asks Amy for some money. Amy isn't going to do it, and then Paul says, well, you don't have to be a bitch about it, which you could see triggers Amy, which again is a credit to Ali Wong's acting.
Right. And before that, though, I think it triggered Paul that she kind of
treated him like a kid.
Yeah, and it's consistent with his character when Danny says he doesn't take criticism very well, and the way she was like, it's not millionaire in no time. The way he was just saying it like very blasé.
I need a jump start, and then I know I have it in me to be a millionaire like you in no time.
Well, you make it sound like what I achieved was easy.
No, I'm just saying, like, I could do it too.
Right. Which is to him kind of complimenting her.
Right.
But to her, it was almost like, not condescending, but like, it's not that easy, buddy. And she was, like you said, she was checking him. But she could have done it in a much more constructive manner.
Right.
Instead, she comes off as like, to him, criticism is like, you're attacking my character. And then he immediately becomes defensive and says, you don't have to be a bitch about it, which then triggers her. So it just escalates really quickly,
Yeah, and the show shows how every person has these things that trigger them based on experiences. Mm-hmm. And so whenever Amy's gets triggered in the show, it's someone disrespecting her, challenging her. And whenever Paul has gotten triggered, it's someone belittling him, treating him like a kid, like he doesn't know what he's talking about or he's not capable. And we see that Danny's got his own triggers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very natural way for them to end things. She tells him to leave. Nobody calls me a bitch in my own house, and she says something really kind of hurtful. It says, "Work's not the reason your life's a mess." Attacking her character, and then she has a quiet moment alone by herself, and she kind of breaks down. They both lost something here. You know, they don't realize it yet. They were a very important emotional crux in each other's lives. You know, they finally consummated it, and now it's over. I don't think they ever get back to that place again. So, and then we get into this, you know, subplot with Naomi. You know, she's supposed to be in Ojai, which is a funny recurring thing in BoJack Horseman. Like, oh, hi. Oh, you been to Ojai? It's like, oh, hi. No, I just said Ojai. So the Naomi thing, Naomi's kind of investigating the road rage incident, right?
Yeah, before that, Naomi calls Amy just to ask for a recommendation because she's up for some award or something. But then Amy is in a state because of what happened with Paul, and she's not giving Naomi the response that Naomi was expecting or hoping for, and she
kind
probably
of dismisses her, right?
Yeah, probably feels slighted. And so, yeah, like in this whole episode, it's like looking at different characters and looking at how they all need something. Like you said earlier, you know, they give Fumi more time in this episode than they do in others. Well, they give Naomi more time in this episode. And so Naomi, she needs affirmation too, right? She this award's important for her. She was looking for affirmation from Amy. She was probably hoping that Amy would enthusiastically agree to give her a recommendation. So she feels a void. She resents Amy. And with the whole accident thing, road rage, neighborhood watch thing, she finally gets the affirmation and connection that she's been needing from that neighborhood watch guy.
Yeah, Farouz,
yeah.
Before that, she kind of like puts herself in a body bag in that like thing on the hanger of her like Gucci whatever closet hanger thing, and she for some reason reads social media in that. I guess is that like a ritual she does?
Well, there's something there because she was trying to get. She's
like
trying to make her
thing, right?
Feel better by posing with her things, like her fancy designer bags and this and that.
Okay.
But then she ultimately realized this isn't making me feel better, and so
putting myself in my own body bag.
Yeah.
World.
So the garment bag, I don't know, was it like Louis Vuitton? Or it was
something. It was
it instead of giving her life, it becomes this metaphoric body bag.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I would have never seen that in her, a character like who seems so like bubbly and cheerful. But yeah, I guess everyone has, you know, their own demons and darkness.
Right, and again,
which is
like,
fascinating. But
like reality lurking behind this cheerful, surface.
Right. Yeah, I didn't think about the affirmation thing because I was kind of like writing notes during this scene. But yeah, you're right. Like she does get it in Farouz when she's like, "Oh, that's not an easy thing to do." You know, like she's like, "Well, thank you."
Want a drink?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm actually up for next year's People to Watch.
Oh, impressive. That is no easy feat.
Thank you.
You're just like, "Oh, that's all I needed this whole time."
Yeah.
And then, like, I think it was like a Calabasas magazine or something.
Yeah.
And I think Amy is leaving the house here. I can't really see what happens.
Yeah. So Amy sets the alarm and leaves.
Right. Yeah.
And Fumi kind of emerges from this corner, and I was wondering if Fumi was in the house the whole time when
Oh right, yeah, I think that is.
Paul
Yeah.
and Amy were hooking up, because Fumi, she had a sense that things between Amy and George weren't going so well.
Yeah.
And she says to her, or
To her an account. Okay.
yeah,
Accountant.
he said to your accountant, well, I'm going to need, financial support.
Yeah, I think
Because whatever financial support I've been getting from Amy, well, that might be ending.
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
quickly,
I think it's overtly stated when she says there are some disruptive events happening between my son and his wife.
So
yeah, she sees that. She witnesses the affair.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it may affect my finances.
Yeah.
Call me back.
Yeah.
And then that's when enter Bobby and Michael, like just chit chatting.
Yeah.
Walking into the house and just chit chatting, like fucking these guys, dude. I guess they think that the house is empty.
Right.
So how did they get the code? Did they have the code? Did Danny get it from George?
Fumi deactivates the code, deactivates the alarm. So I think they were just lucky to get in when the code wasn't set. Maybe they picked the lock. I don't know.
Yeah, they're. In any case, you can tell these are very incompetent criminals.
Yeah, almost like Home Alone,
Okay, yeah.
Home Alone.
Nice. The herpes poo-pooed they're talking about here.
Yeah, and Bobby's really fixated on all
Yeah, he takes it. And then Fumi comes in, you motherfucker, shoots him. And when I first saw this, I thought she died. I thought she had a heart attack and died falling down the stairs. But great needle drop here. System of a Down, Such a Lonely Day. I remember hearing that in like Disturbia. And I really like that song, one of my favorite System of a Down songs. And I think it's confirmed that she doesn't die here because we don't see her in a body bag. And we see the paramedics come, and we don't get a zip up. We just see Naomi coming out of her house with Farouz saying, "I know that family." End credits, directed by Hikari. I think his last episode directed by Hikari. Forgot to mention, written by Marie Hanon Nguyen and Nico Gutierrez Kovner. So got a Vietnamese screenwriter here. Awesome. All right, that brings us to the end of the episode of our recap. Let's get into our final thoughts and our Yelp rating. What's your Yelp rating and final thoughts, Edwin? No Edwin, by the way, in this episode.
We'll get plenty of Edwin coming up.
All right.
I was wavering. Like, I got what you said where you felt like it was a bit of a lull. And I felt that as well, so I was wavering between a 3.5 and a 4. But I always appreciate character development in movies and TV shows, and I felt like this did that. And so I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay. Very cool.
If I could give a 3.75, I would, but since we can't do that on Yelp,
right.
I'll give it a 4.
Right, somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4. Let's just say that. Very cool. Yeah, I'm like I said before, it's the Cold War season of our beef. Not much beef going on, just a lot of setup for future, events. Just got a lot of quiet character moments, but between a lot of tertiary characters, so nothing too riveting. So I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 stars, probably one of my lowest ratings. But interesting stuff here. Fumi, more Fumi screen time, more Naomi screen time, and we got the huge blow up between Danny and Paul and Amy. Paul looking ripped as hell here in his sex scene. Young Mazzino, he's getting those reps in, in the gym there. So. But yeah, I wasn't too high in the episode. A lot of just setup. We'll see how it sets those things up and how they pay off, and maybe, adversely. I don't know if I'm using that term correctly, but in hindsight, maybe that will make me go back and, make it a higher rating, but who knows? For now, as a standalone episode, I don't think it works that well. So 3 out of 5 for me. So cool, yeah. It looks like we're both a little just middling on this episode. We thought it was okay. So we're looking forward to episode 6. We draw a magic circle. Until then, you guys can check out past episodes at thelaserboy.wordpress.com. Check us out on YouTube. Type in the Laserboy with a Z. Any final thoughts?
No, I think we're about halfway through, right? That
Yes,
was episode
yeah.
5. So let's look forward to the last half.
Yeah. Thank you so much again, Edwin, for joining me.
See you, Joseph.
All right. See you guys next time.
The most loneliest day of my life.
That was a weird way to bye. All right, I'll cut that out. That was so awkward. That's a blooper right there.